Hi, welcome to another episode of the Adventist Asia Podcast. I'm Tony, your host, and I'm here today with Ryan, who is our IT director here at the Southern Asia Pacific Division. Hey, Ryan, what's up?
Hey, Tony. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. So, in short, what do you do for a living?
Well, I work for the Adventist Church.
Okay.
I serve the Adventist Church here in Southern Asia Pacific Division as the IT director for our IT services. And yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, so that's what you do. Sometimes people look at us in our two departments like we're the ministry of pushing buttons, right? So aside from us working here, tell us a little bit about the background of you. Like where are you from? Tell us about family.
Well, I initially didn't start out working for the church, although they call us what do they call this? Workers' kids.
Workers' kids. Okay.
Yeah. Something like that.
Basically free labor. No.
Yeah. So so I'm really from South Philippines. I grew up there. I spent most of my childhood there, but I didn't actually. And even though my dad served in our union there at SPUC, I didn't actually see myself working for the church. When I graduated from computer science, there's just nothing there. I don't think. The question people ask when people ask me, why aren't you working for this institution, SPUC or something like that, my first question is usually about what am I gonna do there, something like that. So really, I really started off working outside the church, as I started off as a freelance programmer. After graduating, doing my bachelor's degree on computer science, and so I spent about a year or so doing that freelance work essentially. But I also believe that sort of like, I would say, a plan, God's plan for me. I would say, because that gave me sort of the real world experience to do things, things that I would probably never experience had I started off in the church, having this pressure where you actually get fired for not completing your jobs.
And also the level of expectation, because I too have worked outside of the church before working with the church. I don't think it's everywhere, but sort of we're part of like, there's a family vibe when you're here working in the church. So definitely. It's okay. It's okay. They if you weren't able to hit the bar or hit the goal, okay, we'll try again. But you're right. If you're outside, you're working for companies, they set goals, and if you don't meet that goal,
you're
okay.
Goodbye.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
You just did it.
You're just not.
You're just not enough. So that is the challenge of working out. But when you were working for some of these companies as like a freelancer, is it like a career goal that you were going after?
Not really. I mean, I was relatively young then, 25, 26, something like that. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about career or anything. And here's the thing, relatively, you make a lot more money.
Yes.
And
relatively.
Bro. and so you're like, you're just enjoying yourself, essentially, Especially back then, that was the sort of like the boom of IT, of online work, back then. And there were fewer people who were doing that, supply and demand, so you got paid more. Back then, and it was easier to get into online jobs back then. So easier prospects, more pay. So you're like just having the time of your life, essentially. But with all that, oftentimes you'd think about, is there something more? There will come a time when money becomes sort of like, I didn't make a ton, but I made enough that it was, I wasn't penny pinching or anything.
But you were looking for something more, right?
There's
something more to life than just earning.
Just earning, just hitting client calls. My specific niche at that time was building websites, essentially, building modules and for WordPress websites, plugins, and there were some interesting projects. But then after they get done, you're like, what's next? I guess when was that? Sort of like the, what do you call that?
It clicked.
Yeah,
or
something like that.
That moment, the aha moment.
Light bulb.
Okay.
Light bulb. Yeah, thank you, JD.
Is JD down?
It's JD.
Hey, the producer's in the house. Don't worry.
There was this family friend of ours who just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, Ryan, there's an opening at SSD. Now, here's the thing. I was a worker's kid, but I didn't know about SSD. I didn't even know.
The division office.
I didn't know anything about that, and I was like, "What's that?" Like, no, this is our his name is Kikeo Rivera, and he just contacted me out of the blue on Facebook and said, "Hey, there's this opening. They're looking for a web programmer or something like that, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, are you sure this is legit? Are you sure this is legitimately programming work?" My idea of working for this. I already had an idea from my dad's working at the union level, and I was like, "Are you sure this is going to be long-term programming work?" I'm like, I don't want to end up fixing stuff after a project is done. And there's no, this is really good. They usually hire foreigners for this, and it's like, okay, fine. And so I applied. I treated it like any other client. I sent out a resume, although technically I didn't usually send out resumes because most of the online work, they usually don't care about those. They just usually
they look at your reputation,
your back work. And stuff that you've done.
Yeah.
They don't normally care about your background, bachelor's degree or anything like that. They don't care about those. They just want to know whether you can do
if you can supply what they need.
Right. Can you get it done or not? Yeah. But I had to develop a more formal resume then submitted it and long story short, they got back to me a couple months later.
Efficiency at its best.
A couple months later, it's like, hey, could you come over to and remote meetings weren't a thing back then. So they're like,
you had to fly all the way here.
Yeah, they flew me over here. They paid for it, so that was good. And now that was my first, I would say, physical interview. Here's the thing, I didn't remember any of the interviews.
Like the question.
Yeah, the question. I didn't remember any of them. Relatively they were easy. When you've done actual client work, the things that are thrown at you are relatively easy. However, what struck me, because after my interview, it was Pastor Catholic, I believe. It was like, hey, let's go downstairs, because I believe they're having they were having an event, a program. I think it was Week of Prayer, and so we went down there, and I went with Pastor Catholico, and that was my first time joining the SSD family per se. And I don't know, there's just a difference in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, something like reverence or it's something like that.
Because it's different.
It's totally different.
Yeah, it's like you walk into a corporate building, right?
Right.
Someone's praying. Oh, they're having worship. They're having a program. It's different.
And this was during close to
lunch.
Close to lunch, and so so that was totally different for me. I think it was Pastor Lubis and his wife who were and if you've seen them do program, they host a program, say they're a bit on the funny side sometimes. It's really so. But even then, there was this different spiritual feeling, to be honest. And in that moment, I said, you know what? I want to work for this, for this organization. If I was chosen, I'd say yes for that. So that's how I started. Then another couple of months,
So your application took a couple of months. I mean, before they got to your interview, and then it was a couple of months of this. I think we're gonna go with Ryann.
It was about It took almost half a year or something.
Really,
So
you're saying, Ryann, when you started, when you felt that you wanted to work for the church, it was actually at that moment when you actually got exposed to the culture that was here. It wasn't like a dream, right?
No. I mean, when I used to talk with our other Adventists friends who were also into IT, other programmers, we'd sometimes sometimes our institutions would ask us to do stuff for them, just put up a website or something like that. Then we'd go over talking about what we did for this and this. But over time, we just keep saying there's just nothing there for us, man. I mean,
yeah.
We don't really see our institutions as a destination career-wise.
Yeah. I think that's one of the. I wouldn't say that one of the hindrances, but maybe before that could be why there's a challenge of having non-clergy working within the building, because for clergymen, for those who went through theology and became a pastor and became a church pastor per se, and then went up the system in a sense. I don't know what you want to call it, but what I mean is, they were at the district level, and then they had more responsibility. And of course, coming to the division is more responsibility for a pastor. But for professionals, whether IT, tech, media, creatives, they're sort of like, it's just here, like you were saying, I don't see like a future that is there.
Something like that.
How did that give you any fear? I mean, when you're having that type of conversation with friends, did you sense like their minds are going elsewhere? They're not focused on the work, or they're looking for other opportunities?
I mean, these professional, IT professionals, they were already working in the IT industry. So, I mean, some of them were also workers' kids.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, some of them were. So we knew what it was. It's just that we didn't see ourselves working for
the church.
for what our parents were working for.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't see a place for us in the system.
And that was what, bro? I don't want to give out your age, but that was like, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
10 years ago.
More than 10 years ago. Yeah.
How does that look like now?
I think we're getting there.
Where's there, bro? Let's be specific.
So, we've moved. We've definitely moved in that direction. Sometimes, maybe not by choice, oftentimes, but, this day and age where technology is more and more intertwined with everything that we do, there's, I would say, there's just no escaping it, and you'll see it in symptoms of that is from an corporate level would be inefficiencies in operations, things like that. if you continue not utilizing technology in your operations, you're just going to see inefficiencies all across.
I think our church sees that. I mean, the world church sees that.
Yeah.
They have people there with different degrees in education, way above my pay grade. People who are, they've had exposure to how systems work in organizations. And so we were there together in Chiang Mai a couple weeks ago, and they had that theme there, digital strategy for mission.
Right, yeah.
And of course, there's different people in the room. You got your treasurers, your IT, your communicators. But what does that mean for you, Ryan, being the director for IT in our division, in our region? What does that digital strategy for mission look like?
I'm glad you asked that, Tony, because one of the things I'm seeing is that, and I'm quite happy that it's happening, is that there's more and more attention being given to technology. Especially in our ministries, in the way we do mission, there's more and more investments being made on how we can utilize technology for mission. And I think it's about time that we, as a global church, actually do that. And that's, I guess, I would say the first step, because that actually means that we are realizing that our lack of it. At the same time, we are also realizing the potential of technology.
Yeah. You have these three words that you may not always put together: digital, strategy, and then mission. You have these three words that are stuck together. And our church is geared towards, being part of the mission. And now we're trying to make things more efficient and maybe streamline things. The words are scalability and, where do you see the IT right now? What are there things that you're working on now that are going to help in the scalability of our mission, or make the mission or our work within our territory more effective or more efficient?
One of the things that and this was the sort of like dream that I had even before, joining SSD, at least a decade ago, 10 years ago, was this idea of enabling any professional, even though IT people who does not necessarily have to be connected to the church. They don't have to be working for the church, but they're also Adventists, or they have a passion they want to help out in the church. It is enabling those types of professionals, and to be able to do that requires some sort of cultural shift, I guess, mindset within the organization at least. You have to be able to position ourselves in the way we do things, in the way we develop IT projects. When we develop software, we have to make it in such a way that we can enable other people to help us.
Okay.
And I think that's what's lacking right now. And being able to introduce that mind shift is, I believe, key to be able to do that.
Yeah. I like how you're framing that, because often when we sit in committee meetings or you're in meetings, it's that team at the table. Making the decisions, playing.
Exactly.
And I like how you say you have to position yourself that we work for the church, meaning we work for the whole church in a sense. I'm talking about the people who are members of our church. We work for them in a sense of maintaining our church, things like that. But we forget that we can also get support from them in terms of technical support and maybe with ideas. I remember, Ryan, we were in a meeting together and you were proposing the usage of openware. Open source, sorry.
Yes.
Is that part of this concept of this dream that you had, is to make not open, but the way that we develop our programs for the church, our applications, our tech, it becomes open source?
That is part of the initiative, yes. And and open source is one of them. But really, it's about having how do you call this? You'd probably call it more like an open. It's more like a way of thinking. It's a framework, sort of.
Okay.
You'd probably call it more like a open digital ministry or something.
Okay.
Something like that. And so it's a series of things that you do. So open sourcing your development projects is part of that. Also focusing on enabling professionals, outside the church to be able to help you is part of that. So that means, building communities of IT professionals, but also having a governance framework sort of that helps guide them on what they can and cannot do. How can they contribute to the church? So that also means developing open standards of working, because standards are probably key to be able to do collaboration across any type of system. So that's key, because you want things to be you want to do things in a collaborative manner, not just for within teams inside the church, but also be able to working with people outside the church. You also want anything that you build to be able to talk with other systems. So that's what they call being interoperable. That's a lot of
Interoperable. Okay.
Interoperability.
Okay.
Something like that.
I mean, for those that are listening, I think you're referring. You're referring to things like we have systems that other divisions make, right? I mean, say for example, like our church wants to implement a church membership data platform,
right.
And so you're saying it's open in a way that I can connect to the. I mean, our church from this side of the world can connect to their database, or vice versa,
right.
to get information that's
needed.
information,
things like that, and allowing these professionals, if they have an idea, they're like, and they have an idea that involves that type of information, sort of that allows them to just build it. You don't have to go through a lot of red tape, to be able to do that. And in a way, that's what open source does. When you want to get involved in a project, you don't necessarily have to know the people behind the project. You just do.
Yeah, meaning that there's like a website like GitHub or something where our source code and all the things are there, and how people can. Is there any current project that you're working on that you guys are using this type of mindset and framework?
Right now, we're still on the process of creating some sort of like project management structure, because I think that's also key. Being able to do documentation, developing standards, things like that. What should projects have and not have? So one of the things that we've settled on is that anything that we do, any project, any software that we develop, must have an API. So because API acts application programming interfaces, that's what allows this system to be able to talk to other systems, and that's one of our goals. Things like that. So it's more of like a foundational level, I would say, and part of that is that I believe at SSD, in general, we don't have any IT infrastructure organization, so to speak, at a division level, at scale. But I also think that that's a good thing, because now you get to build it, right from the beginning. Learning lessons from other sister divisions, and asking help from them, and that's key. Asking help from this division, and say, just like asking them, if you were to start all over again based on what you've done. I mean, I asked Dean Tichborne. He's from the South Pacific Division. He visited SSD a couple of weeks ago, and one of the questions I asked him was that, if you were to start all over again, learning from lessons that you've learned. I mean, you've been there for like 15 years at the SPD. How would you do it differently? And a lot of them actually have like, if I had to do it all over again, I do it this way.
Just lessons,
Yeah, lessons. And the thing is, we don't have to make their mistakes.
Correct. You can listen in and apply.
Yeah, right.
I see.
Right.
Part of your team, you guys have projects that you're doing, maybe I think for treasury, So as you're solving these problems, what are some of the apps that you're working on right now to solve some of these long-term or ancient problems that our church has?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to do is implementing these Adventist World Church platforms. So the General Conference, which is, how would you describe the General Conference?
Technically, that's our boss.
That's our boss.
Basically, yeah, our division.
Right.
Yeah.
So the General Conference has been acquiring, these intellectual property rights to all these big platforms, softwares that have been developed by other divisions. They've been acquiring this so that they could give it away.
Yeah. So basically, the church is trying to make formal ownership of exactly. these applications so that it can be freely distributed.
Right. Okay. And I think right now we have a portfolio of around 8 or 10 platforms that is being positioned to be given away to the World Church. And so one of those is the Treasury ACMS Plus, Adventist Church Management System, that has the Treasury module. What it does is it allows, churches to manage, offerings, things like that, but at the same time, manage the reporting of it up to the
Okay. That's different from the membership. That's a different. That's ACMS
module.
I got
it sits on top of the membership platform.
So it's all in. But basically, it's all one app. Basically,
it's all one app
with the APIs that you were sharing about earlier. We'll connect the different divisions.
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah,
hopefully, hopefully we get there. I mean, that would save a lot of time, though.
Right. Exactly. So things like that. So you have this platforms that the GC is trying to get ownership of so that we can use them. But we still see gaps, I mean, they provide all these wonderful things, and I think their church should use them. But you're still going to see gaps in between where you'll still want to see local development done. And so in that way, you still want to organize your IT professionals in your division to be able to help out.
Yeah, because I'm for sure there will be different problems per region. I mean, not necessarily bugs, but like you say, those gaps. I mean, I would hope that one day for our church here in Asia, we would have our own version of e-giving. Where we can do it online. But for sure, that's a lot of work because we don't live in one country.
There's that also,
right? I mean, for us right now, we're in the Philippines, but then that's not. There's different banking laws and all those things that need to be worked around just to make stuff like that happen.
Right.
So part of this being your dream, and our church is finally coming on board, mainstream in a sense, with our digital strategy for mission.
For mission, yes.
This also incorporates not just accounting and IT, it also we come together through communications.
Right.
Through communications.
Exactly.
Where do you see the connection with this digital strategy for mission? Where do you see the connection between IT things or tech and multimedia and communication?
IT and media, they're really close brothers, sometimes twins, even, I would say. and really, I believe that there should be tighter collaboration in between the two. Really, we actually operate conceptually on the same level. You know, we're technical, engineering, things like that, and so I believe that there should be more really collaboration in between the two industries, with the people that are working there. Also, at the same time, we should always remember that even though we have all these cool things, you know, there's always something new being introduced,
coming out
in technology, not just in IT, but also in media and all these things. We should always remember that if it's not for mission, it doesn't matter.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. We heard that a couple of weeks ago. If it's not for a mission.
Oh, that's where I heard it from. That's why I said.
I heard this.
I thought that was original.
Quote Ryann, okay?
Oh, no.
No, but it's true. It's true. Yeah. When I first started with my role as well, that's what Treasury imparted to me, was like, everything needs to be about mission. Exactly. All the decisions you're making. The part of that was my desire of better practice of stewardship, and you know, working between your department and trying to figure ways how we can do things together was I think the more efficient in the way that I was thinking. Because if you go to like an advertising firm or production house, they would have their own ITs, you know what I mean? They have their own technical staff that will be doing the work that needs to be done for the backbone. And that means I would need to hire, but I don't need to hire an IT if there's already an IT department here. I just collaborate with them, you know?
Exactly.
And I mean, it's you that fixes up all of our internet around here. I mean, cabling and stuff, you see. So
the team does.
There is a real partnership, or brother, like twins, that they work hand in hand together. Ryann, you know, we might not be able to share everything about what we're doing because time, but if you had something that you would want to say, or what advice you would give to some young professionals or professionals right now that are Adventists in their own workplace, how could they be part of this mission strategy, or how could they be part of the mission of the Adventist Church, and without being needed to be working within a physical building of the church or connected to the Adventist Church in terms of work?
Right. Well, the first step, actually, Tony, is very easy. Join the digital ministry repository. That's on Facebook.
A plug. JD, right. JD, are you hearing this, JD?
Yeah.
Plug.
You gotta join that group. Okay? Because that's where the cool people are at.
Whoa. Yes. We have, actually, Ryan, I think last week I was bugging JD and Jess about it because we hit 3,000, but we're only posting once a week. There's so many things we want to do. But you're right. Being part of a community helps. At least
exactly
vision and maybe related passions and stuff. It connects to the future. I mean, it connects to the mission is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I believe that's sort of like the first step. You know, getting involved with other professionals who are in the field. So our field is media and IT, and you know, I don't really see us separating into these two groups. You know, we're both. A lot of times, you know, you have professionals in the church who are doing media. At the same time, they're doing IT for the church. Yes. I mean, that's very common. And so, really, like I said, that's the really first step. Join this community, Digital Ministry Repository. And the thing is, when we do have something specific to IT, you know, that's probably the first place that we'd look. Okay. You know, that community. Yeah.
Well, if that's the first step, then that means we have to partner a little bit more, Ryann. If so we can post some materials. But you know, the reason why we wanted to create a community is because we wanted to find a way. Well, for me, it's about the time. I need to find time to make content. But you know, if our other professionals out there can share how they do things on the platform. Exactly. I know it's a challenge because it's difficult to put yourself out there. Like I'm going to post something. It's I'm boasting about my work or something like that. But in reality, those who are like-minded, we appreciate the DIY stuff or the process of how they do things. If it's IT work or media work,
right?
We want to see the details. We want to see how that
how
works.
How you're doing it at your church.
Yeah.
You know, I love seeing those. I love people in the DMR. You know, seeing other people posting their setups. You know, how they're doing it for their local church or conference level. I mean, I get bored seeing your stuff in there.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, thank you. I will take that clip and post it there. People can understand. But the reality is that when we get our community to become more active in that sense of sharing how they're doing things, it inspires us to try different modes or different strategies and best practices. So aside of joining DMR, have you experienced anything or I mean, like you've saw some things in action where we see our young professionals being active in supporting the church through IT work?
Yeah, I believe so. A few months back in the division, I believe you were part of that. The people who organized this hackathon, you know, for Adventist Mission. Just and the thing is, I think that's probably the first time that has happened
for us here.
Yes, for us here.
Yeah.
We invited all these young professionals, you know, people who weren't working for the church, but who were interested in helping the church, and they just came here. What was that group?
Well, JD, words, please.
Tito Solutions.
Yeah, Tito Solutions.
Tito Solutions. Yeah. Right.
But,
exactly.
But they're part of a church group in Manila. And that's where they grow together spiritually. But they're bonded because of the fact that they do IT work, or media work.
Exactly.
And the one thing that also inspires me is that not everyone in the room was an Adventist member.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
And them hearing, I wouldn't say testimony, but hearing from the director himself, like, this is the Adventist Missions director for a certain people group. Sharing the background of why there needs to be security around something, or the way that it needs to look because of culture or color preferences of that people group. They were all like, "Oh, that's what it's like."
Yeah,
because we live in a Christian country, right? So seeing that was inspiring to me.
Exactly.
And if we had more opportunities like that, Ryan.
And I wish we could do more of that.
Yes.
I mean, not just here in the division, but all throughout our other, organizations, institutions.
Probably, this being like sort of like our first year of digital strategy for mission. Maybe in the coming years, your department would be able to or organize that way of by unions having programmers and people who do website app development and media all come to solve a problem or some problems within that circle for the Adventist Church or for the mission of the Adventist Church. That would be very cool.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All right. What we've been talking about, Ryan, paints a picture of how our tech professionals and creatives and media, we have a place. Our church has a place, and it's not always at the back of the church pushing the buttons.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you were saying 10 years ago, you had a different perspective of maybe what is my end goal here? Where is this going?
Exactly.
And now from our last meeting, it's like, not that sky's the limit, but
it can be.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. Correct. It can be. But what I'm trying to say is that there needs to be emphasis now and focus on the strategies of how we're using technology
to enable mission.
Exactly. And not as enabling mission is informing people of what the Bible is, who Christ is, and of course the second coming, of his soon return. And I find that inspiring because now we have something to look forward to. It's not just going to be Let's go. It's just another day. For me now, when I look at my team and trying to organize a team, it's now, okay, guys, how are we redefining how we're doing social media? How are we redefining how we're making scripts?
Exactly.
How are we redefining how we're making designs or taking photos? How is that amplifying the mission or contributing to the whole work of the Adventist Church?
That's right. Exactly, Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
There will be another one. And the other one, maybe we'll get more technical in details. Thanks again for joining our episode of Adventist Asia with Ryan. And if this is your first time tuning in, make sure that you go follow our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and of course here on Spotify. And so we're hoping and we pray that as you are being called to do what God has given a passion in your heart with, that you find a way to align yourself with the bigger workings of the church.
Right.
And that you can use your skills, your talents in IT or in media. If you're a programmer or if you're a designer, you find some way to uplift the name of Jesus and send the mission of Christ forward, that people will know who Jesus is. So until next time, take care.